So Mika, we're here ahead of the final race. We still have to cast our thoughts back to Brazil, though. This very, let's say, potentially explosive situation at Red Bull between Max and Checo. What's your take on it? You know, we've been teammates, we've been through that situation where we've had to sometimes take the team instruction. So what do you think the fallout from that will be?
Yeah, David, we've both been racing for Formula One for years in the past. And we've been in situations where we have to do something what we don't want to do. and when you finish the Grand Prix, naturally your emotions are very high. You would like to tell every fans, everybody in Formula One paddock, how you really feel, what you really think. And sometimes, you know, you have to be disciplined and keep your mouth shut a little bit. But what happened in Brazil, example, there was not too many words because everything what happened in the racetrack told the story itself. Yeah. So team is saying radio, do this, Max doing that.
Yeah.
And there was a story behind why all that happened.
Yeah, that story actually is the question is, did Checo in Monaco, when he spun the car, did he do that deliberately? I guess we'll never know if we're not in the car, but if you watch the footage, he did have a little spin at lower speed than his qualifying lap, and that clearly upset Max, and I believe that's the reason why Max didn't want to move over in Brazil. Do you think Checo was that kind of guy? You think he would do that deliberately?
Well, we are both racing drivers, and we asking that question from ourselves. You know, when we raced together in Formula One, if you would have been pole, because we were teammates for 20 years, if you would have been pole and I would be second, and there's only not so much time left, would you go in that entry of the tunnel corner and think, I'm in pole? Okay, I got too early on the gas and I spin the car and I crash.
I wouldn't, would you? I don't think you would either.
No, it would be, okay, would I do that? If it would be, maybe the last Grand Prix of the season and I would be fighting for the World Championship, I would have maybe considered it.
No, I always thought you were a completely sporting guy.
But I looked at film quite often when Checo was coming to that corner, and I believe, I have not driven the latest Formula One cars, but I think that the torque, what the engines are having, is quite aggressive. So if you go too early in the throttle, and you know that corner going in the tunnel in Monaco is a very tricky corner. You want to go power early because it's quite a long, let's call it straight after that. So did he go power too early? And that's why he spun. Did he do that purposely? We can discuss that forever. And Checo is the right person to say, yes, I did it, or I did not. And I don't think he's ever going to tell us the truth.
He's not going to tell us.
Maybe 25, 30 years later, he's going to sit down here and say, yes, I did it purposely.
Yeah. Well, look, we've been in a situation, haven't we, where the team have given us instructions. And I never like to have to move over for you. And I guess you moved over a couple of times for me. It does put a strain within the team. But if you recall, Ron Dennis would sit you and I down and we would discuss it, the three of us, and clear the air. So do you think that's what Red Bull would have done now? They would have sat the drivers down and said, okay, look, what happened there was not reflecting well on the team. It was not reflecting well on Max because people, the public, have been a little bit negative that he doesn't appear thankful to Checo for his help. So would you imagine that would be the situation there? They would have sat down all around the table?
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure they did that. And only what I see today's world compared to our time again, you know, the information, it was a bit slower in our time, you know. Now something happens and thousands and millions of information goes out in viral everywhere in the internet, and the story keeps changing and moving, and different type of opinions coming in people's mind, which are sometimes accumulating this whole story. But that's, we cannot change that. That's the world where we live in today. But for sure they've been having a discussion. For sure they clean the air inside in a team. That way it doesn't start generating later on the problem with the teammates. probably with the mechanics, engineers, and with the public. The team wants to show the world everything is fantastic. We are all happy bunnies, but in reality, you know, David, like well as I know, that if there is an incident like that, we don't forget, and we constantly somewhere back of our mind, we do move on, but we don't forget.
Yeah. Well, look, there's so many similarities to when we were teammates. You won the 2 world championships, so I effectively ended up being number 2 driver. It's, I think, even clearer within Red Bull that Max is number 1 and Checo's number 2.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Is Checo wrong to say, well, you know, I deserve, let's say, the result from Max when Max is just driving the car a little bit quicker?
It's difficult to say. And again, when you are sitting in a racing car, you are in a race. You know, your focus, your motivation is to do your job. Your job is not to slow down. And it's really hard. It's really hard when somebody says, you slow down and let this other driver to score points. It's a very difficult situation, you know.
When you talk about it, because, you know, when I first was asked to move over for you, when you won your first Grand Prix, the team never mentioned it to me before the race. So when they came on the radio and said, move over for Mika, I'm like, no, I'm not moving over.
Yeah, that's David, true.
But, so that was a bad situation. It was a good day for you because you were winning. But then after that, we always talked about it before the race. And I believe what happened in Brazil, it hadn't been discussed before. And I think that's why Max was not happy.
David, you maybe know more than I do, but that is exactly what the fans wants to understand. Did they talk about it? If this is the case, if it is the situation in a race, do you let Checo to score points because of his position in the championship? So I don't know exactly, is there a story? Did they do that conversation? Did they do that conversation, David? Do you know?
I don't believe they did have the conversation, and that's why Max was not happy about it.
That's it, end of the discussion.
Well, end of the discussion for now. We have one more Grand Prix where we're going to find out whether, if Max can help Checo, he does. We'll find out on Sunday. Mika, thanks for your thoughts.
You.